All right. I'm ready to go too. I just put lotion on my hands and I'm trying to fix my mic stand. I feel like that would be a good bit. I don't know. I
It's
don't know.
fun.
Maybe it's been done many times before. But yeah,
Where are
man.
you based out of?
I'm in Dallas,
Oh, okay, cool.
Plano.
I'm
Yeah, man.
just
I
gonna be
missed
booking some
your
stuff.
I missed your comedy show when you came over here, man. I was so
I'm coming
upset.
through in March.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Yo,
yeah, booking some dates.
you will see me there for sure.
Nice. Yeah, it'll be just after South by Southwest. We're just confirming some stuff.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, I guess we can s- start it. I mean, it kind of feels like we already did start, but let's see. The time
Did we?
is
Okay.
7:12. I mean, it's been
All
recording.
right. All right. Here we go.
All
Well,
right.
you're going to edit out all of the stuff of me trying to connect to my
Yeah.
headphones. I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah. Although
Okay.
that would be good
Gold.
material.
Yeah, people really want to see the behind the scenes. They
You
want to see
know,
the many issues someone might have.
I was thinking about making a subscribers only or a Patreon where I can add stuff like that for people who want to see it for like 99
Want to see
cents.
someone have technical issues? Pay $5 a month.
Or a lot of times when I'll press stop recording and the person who I'm interviewing will give me like the most amazing advice like that I've ever
Yeah,
heard. And I'll be like, why did I stop recording?
that's often the case.
I should have had that recording.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You're a young man.
I'm learning.
I, I'm I'm more than double your age.
yeah, I know, man. That blows my mind.
I
Cause
started doing comedy when you were 1 years old.
okay, that's not bad. That you have literally my lifespan worth of com comedian experience.
Yeah, experience. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I have actually gone to a few open mics myself,
No, nice. How'd they
and
go?
I've only been to one, honestly, and I
Okay.
recorded it, and I don't know, iffy. It went all right.
Yeah. Open mics are generally iffy.
Yeah, yeah, man. But I'm trying. I don't know. Your comedy show that you mix with psychedelics seems like I don't know. I feel like you would think that most comedy shows would already be like incorporated with psychedelics. Like I don't know. I feel like when you think about like Duncan Trussell's comedy show, like not that I want to like spoil it or anything, but it's very different than like a normal comedy show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah,
he
Duncan's great.
chants and will do weird stuff that a
Yeah,
lot of
he's a
times is
fun
not even
weirdo.
comedy. Man, I love Duncan. He's like the whole reason why I started podcasting.
Oh
Part of
yeah,
it.
nice. Well, you're gonna have to start working on your ad reads, your 30-minute ad reads
Mm-hmm.
before each
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, and
So
I also don't have 30-minute intros,
yeah,
which
exactly.
makes me question. But dude, every podcast is different, right? Like
Yeah,
your
very much.
podcast is so different. Like even with Ramin Nazer, the mom podcast, Mind Under Matter.
Yeah, yeah.
How's that going along?
Well, I put both my podcasts, that and Here We Are, my science podcast, on hiatus to put together my current tour, and I am trying to relaunch Here We Are. I thought I was going to relaunch it in January. It'll now be February.
Oh, cool.
And I'm in about 3 cities a week. I have runs on the tour where I'm in 7 cities in a row, and so I have 7 cities in 7 days. And so I this tour is keeping me very busy. And so, I did I 10 years of podcasting already. And so I've taken a little break to do this tour and get my special out and going, and then
Yeah.
yeah, getting
Is
all
your
the
s-
other things fired up.
is your special gonna be from a better trip? That's what the tour is called, right? The
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The current tour that I'm doing is called A Better Trip. It's an
What a good
immersive
name.
psychedelic comedy tour, and I will be recording it for a special. We'll see. I'm flying to Denver to go to Meow Wolf to check out their
Whoa.
space for this weekend. I'm checking out the space to see if I want to shoot a special there or not, and then I'm just figuring out a time, which will be as early as July and as late as November is when I would be recording a special.
I just heard your interview with the creators from Meow Wolf.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it was the
Really
last
interesting people. Yeah. The
podcast that you
last Mind
did.
Under Matter. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Mind on the Matter, which you didn't even do with Ramir.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we
Ramir.
just both got really busy and put things
Yeah,
on hiatus,
yeah.
and so yeah, tried to
Yeah, I
expand it.
mean, I thought it was mind blowing the stuff that Ramin was making for the podcast. Like how does he put so much time into like
Oh yeah,
it's one thing.
yeah, yeah. He's a very talented person.
I mean, you too with the touring, man. That is like you say, it's so casually. I don't know how you can say that so casually, man. Like, is there anything that you do to try to keep your mind like fresh and because I'm guessing that a lot of the stuff that you say might be a little bit like I don't know. A lot of artists, for example, who play the same songs in concerts over and over and will end up like hating a lot of the songs that they made or stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I change things. This project is
Yeah.
a pretty big endeavor. I have a VJ, a live video jockey that provides real-time visuals to go along with the
Mm,
material. And so those are always changing a little bit, and we're playing off of each
right.
other a little bit. And so it's in with this show, there's I when I started doing my first when I put together a psychedelic show for the first time back in 2015 as one of the many themed shows I was doing, I started kind of producing my own shows and doing my own bookings and stuff because it wasn't kind of suitable for a regular comedy club. And so things just really, I started getting involved in the marketing aspects and the production aspects, and now with the live visuals, there's technical aspects of the show, there's logistical things that happen. So I find myself doing a lot more adulting than when I was 21 years old, dreaming of being a comedian. I didn't, I wouldn't have. I did picture myself getting on TV and doing all these, things and making people laugh, all that. And it turns out the real hard stuff is project management software and
Wow.
returning emails and keeping up with the calendar and scheduling your time appropriately. And I'm just happy that right now I have a very successful tour that is keeping me really busy. I'll be performing for we're doing about 1,000 performing for about 1,000 people a week, so it'll be about 50,000 people will or more will see this show by the end of the year. And so that's it's a really fun thing to get to put together and expand, and we're moving into larger venues and everything. And so every show is very different. In fact, I mean, when I'm on stage, that's the most relaxed that I am.
Hmm.
And so Yeah, so, I do just today I was sitting and going through an outline and plotting out some new visuals that we could use and restructuring some of the order of some jokes. I spend a little time writing each day and I often once you get kind of bored with or comfortable enough with the material, that also like really frees up your mind for a lot of creativity. So that's when I do find myself bored on stage, I usually kind of as a kind of self-defense mechanism, I find myself challenging myself to create and take chances and do new things. Um so yeah, it doesn't I wouldn't say that it gets old. I would say that boredom is something that I I remember I actually had a mushroom trip back in 2000 the end of 2017 after I had like gone through a lot of stressful life events and stuff. And then I was in Jamaica and I was helping out with this mushroom retreat and I was reflecting on all of the crazy things that I do with my life. And I was sitting there on mushrooms and I was like, I'm kind of bored right now. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to feel this boredom and explore it.
Mm,
And it was I think it was, a fear of boredom or being boring or, I come from kind of like I always thought in my childhood that, like my parents and teachers and all that were like boring and s- and so my relationship with boredom is something that I consciously put a lot of effort into improving my relationship with. Where now, if I find myself, and this is something that comes with age too, if I find myself a little bored, um, usually that's a relief.
mhm.
I'm just relieved to not be overwhelmed
Yeah.
and feel like I'm behind on everything and stressing to get to the next venue and everything else. So yeah, I would say there's no shortage of adventure in my life and stimulation. And so it
Mm.
definitely it's far from getting old.
Wow, that's incredible, man. I mean, especially as you grow older. I mean, I I wanted to share this with you because you were actually a huge part in this, which I want to thank you for. Basically, I started out studying in UT Dallas with neuroscience.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yes, I did the research track instead of the medicine track or the pre-med track.
Okay.
And I was like the only one who had done research out of like anyone. Everybody else had gone on to pre-med. But um I went, I think it was 2, maybe 3 years with neuroscience, where I took
Mhm.
like intro to neuroanatomy, biology, chemistry, a lot of like neuroscience core classes. And then in my junior year, I switched to psychology, which is what I'm
Oh,
in right
wow.
now. And I'm gonna graduate
Nice.
this December with a bachelor's of science in psychology and a minor in music.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Yeah,
great.
thank you, man.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
amazing.
I'm excited, and I'm just now deciding whether I want to go into therapy or research.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know either
Nice.
one I could potentially connect with psychedelics, which would be my goal,
Yeah.
but I'm still trying to decide what I want to do out of the two.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like two very good options and you may change course along the way too, but I suppose those are big paths to commit to one way or another.
Hmm. Yeah, and one of the main reasons why I switched to psychology was because I watched the interview with you and um who is it? The from Maps. Um
Cole Marta.
Cole Mort, yeah. Cole Morta, who is a genius, such a cool guy. And
Yeah, yeah, Cole's great.
Yeah, on y'all's interview on the camp out, which by the way, when are you guys gonna have another festival like that? Because
Well, that was a lot of work, and with the
yeah,
tour as it is right now, it'll be a little hard to pull off, but
so sick.
I'm hoping to maybe do one next year. I mean, I loved it. I definitely it's something that I want to add to my arsenal, but I'm doing a lot of different things right now so I can set stuff up for that. Like I have products that I'm branding right now that
Mm,
are like Blue Lotus and Amanita muscaria and some proprietary things that are legal psychoactives that we're starting to sell and experiment with and get feedback with, and the company launches in March, and then once that launches, that'll be like a little bit of a soft launch. I've already been selling them at shows and getting feedback and tweaking things, and then
whoa.
they'll be available online March 1st, and that'll be kind of a soft launch, and then over the summer there'll be a larger launch, and then next year I'm going to devote more time to expanding internationally, but then also doing
Mm,
festivals and things. And so yeah, I mean I don't know. It's I have a relationship with Psychedelic Art Gallery, the Chambers Project in Nevada City. We're currently we're currently exploring the idea of doing a festival um, I, out there. Nevada City's a really cool place. There is some land that's going to be finished in the fall in Salt Lake City, where I'm at right now, where I'm exploring potentially uh, putting something that would be maybe spring of next year together for a festival. So I don't know. I really liked it. I really liked curating, a music stage and combining science talks and comedy and a bunch of other things. And wellness and art and leisure and activities all in one camp out weekend. I thought that was one of the coolest things that I've ever put together.
hmm.
It was tons of work,
Yeah.
and I lost money doing it, as almost everyone does their first year of putting together an event like that.
Hmm.
But it was also in many ways the most successful thing that I've ever done in terms of everyone that was there. It was like a life-changing experience for them. So if I can curate more things
Yeah.
like that, I'll be very excited to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I wish I could have gone to that. I will try to go to the next one if there's a next one or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
That sounds
absolutely.
so sick. That sounds so sick. It reminds me a lot of the Maui retreat in for Ramdas. I don't know if you've heard about that retreat
Yeah, yeah.
that they do.
Yeah, the
Have you
Ramdas
ever
retreat. No,
have you
I
ever
haven't
gone?
been. No.
Man, me neither. But it reminds me
Yeah.
of
Duncan's always talking about it. Yeah.
I know, man. That and Burning Man, complete
Yeah.
two festivals that
Yeah,
I wanna.
I haven't been to Burning Man either.
It would be so cool. Like I'm just waiting for Duncan to say that he's going, and I'm probably gonna make that like the time to go. I always say that, but I probably will. But I really
Yeah.
want to go with Duncan and
Yeah, nice. I
whoever.
hope it works out.
And also to Maui. If I could go to Maui with Duncan and like all these other like great teachers who are already there and like meditate, kind of like what's going on in your festival. It's just like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I love events like that. I was so committed to stand-up comedy, and I was so focused and had and in some ways tunnel vision, but I think a pretty positive obsession. At least it was enough to kind of launch my career early on. And I I I never went to festivals or concerts or anything because I was working every weekend. And
What?
so now that I kind of plan my own tours and plan my own routing and stuff, it allows for a lot more time. And being in the psychedelic space, I'm often kind of working and doing various things in festivals too, and performing there. And so yeah, it's a great time.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's one thing that I hear a lot about psychedelic people. It's um like when you go into maps, they have like a bunch of resources for people who want to become psychedelic researchers or therapists.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember who it was. Somebody left a letter and it was just saying like or even what Dr. Cole Marta said on the podcast that y'all were doing at the camp out. It was very much of like psychedelic therapy is not fun. And it's like I put two and
Uh,
two together and I was like, oh shit. What did I never
yeah,
realize that
yeah.
it's not gonna be like you trip sitting your friend in your room
No, it's pretty
putting
serious business.
putting Pink Floyd on for them and
Yeah, I mean,
just
all of it
watching
is
them
pretty.
enjoy.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that that we can keep on trying to make all aspects of work and job and life more fun and more enjoyable, and the importance of
Hmm.
play and everything else is essential in terms of if research seems like pretty tedious stuff to. I've interviewed a lot of scientists. I love talking with scientists. I've never once had the inclination to be a research scientist myself. People are like, "Did you ever consider being a scientist?" I was like, "No,
Yeah.
not at all." I love having conversations with scientists, but yeah, no, it's just I've never felt like a real calling for it. What got you interested in science?
Drugs,
Drugs,
psychedelics.
nice. Learning how the brain works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to. I mean, yeah. Uh, DMT was a big one as well.
DMT's gotten a lot of people into neuroscience.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's a
There's
profound experience.
yeah, right. And I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Me in high school, I did not think that I was going to be the smart or like, not smart because but
But pursuing
yeah,
a
STEM.
career in study. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't at first I thought psychology was like something that you did if you didn't know what you wanted to study and blah blah blah. And at first I
Yeah.
was pushed away from it. But then
Hmm.
after I came back with like this scientifical mind, like something sparked in me where I was just inviting information and I was like, I need to start reading. I started reading like, oh look, thumbs up. I started reading like
It's because of my Mac. It's
oh
it's I
really?
have a new
Oh look
Mac
at that.
3, and so it does all of these yeah
Oh god.
various things. Yeah.
Well, so much for whatever I was talking about. Um
Why you changed your
oh
mind about
yeah.
psychology?
Right, right. I started reading a lot of Ram Dass. I started reading a lot of Timothy Leary. I started reading a lot of Alan Watts, and that just invited me to information. I was like, oh shit, like neuroscience now is actually interesting. And
Yeah.
it was so fascinating, man. While I was in neuroscience, like I did see human brains and poke at them and memorize all the nerves, which was insane. But
Oh yeah.
um but yeah, I think it's interesting that you don't would you want to go back to school now?
No.
No.
Um no, I mean I I really when I learn want to learn about something, there's so many online courses, and then I have access to talking to all these great academics, and I kind of just like getting an overview of a lot of different fields. I would say that um, I kind of like to be like a C to B student in as many different fields as possible. So
Whoa.
I really like the idea of like knowing enough to get a passing grade in kind of all things
Yo.
how the mind works
It
essentially
takes
and
it
evolution and
yeah. It takes an A level student to say that though. Like to do that, like
yeah.
that's like above that's like A plus level. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Like I'm gonna
Yeah, I
nerf
mean,
myself.
it's fortunately I created a career for myself that allowed me to explore a lot of my natural curiosities, and then I
Exactly.
created opportunities to, connect with people that could answer the endless questions that I had about life and existence,
Mhm.
and I really like contemplating our existence. I like problem solving, and I like creative approaches
Mhm.
to heady philosophical concepts. And so I'm a real epiphany chaser, and I think that that if you're hooked on epiphanies, um, you can sit around waiting for them to happen, and you'll have some of those good sparks and insights once in a while, or maybe you'll have a mushroom trip where you make a new connection, and get to feel that exciting kind of rush when you have this new insight, new connection. But I think that I think for me, reading science, as boring as sometimes some of the subject matter can be to mull through some of the foundations of stuff to set up some of the basics, I think that nothing delivers for me epiphanies more reliably than reading and learning about a bunch of different fields of science, and it's also one of the best ways to retain something is to be reading like a couple different books of a couple different fields at the same time, because then you end up putting together a novel connection, because you're reading a book about neuroscience, but then you're also reading a book about the history of music, and now you put together some connection about neuroscience and music because you happen to be reading those two different books that are about two different subjects, and you put together kind of a connection that unifies those subjects in a novel way that no one else has, or at least no one put together for you. You at least thought of yourself, even if someone else has already kind of thought of the idea, and that connection and that is just like that's so exciting for me, and then it really helps you, it really helps retain both of those fields, and it's like it kind of it's a way of utilizing your own kind of ego and evolved impulses to advertise and to we all kind of want to show off in various ways or impress others with our knowledge or wit, and I think that if you can steer some of those more what can be more narcissistic um, tendencies uh, toward toward curiosity and inquiry, it can actually really help learn really well. And the other thing is I have to, I'm a very slow reader. I'm bad at a lot of things, and
Mhm.
but I'm pretty good at retention, and it's because when I have those, I'll have those insights because I'm seeking out new knowledge, and I'm taking in different fields of research, and then I have some new insight. Then I think about, well, how would I convey this to the public? How would I say this in a way that
Mm.
is digestible? And because I immediately have to, like, when I learn something new or interesting, I go like, "Oh, that's so funny. I wonder how I could share that on stage or convey this idea in a way." And so then I have to learn how to teach something. And then kind of when you have to learn how to teach something and explain it to someone else, that's how you start kind of gaining mastery over something. It's not always the case, but
Yeah.
it's so I've built a career for myself that kind of um, all of those things kind of build off of each other.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like I'm hoping science starts getting more popular. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in public interest in science anytime soon, but I think that the science section at the bookstore is still going to be the smallest section for some time to come. But science is such a powerful tool that I think that when people do understand some of the benefits, and if you can make a case that something like neuroscience and psychology can help someone's overall well-being, it might be able to help their productivity, their pocketbook. It might be able to help their relationship with themselves and others. And if you can get people to see that, then again, that's kind of just steering um steering that same sort of narcissism that makes us want to like embellish things on Instagram selfies and whatnot, and
Mm.
instead shift the way that we advertise toward curiosity and learning from each other. I think that scientific literacy could eventually become something that is cool and interesting, and people do want to share and be knowledgeable about. And there's already, I think, even the proliferation of pseudoscience is at least an indicator that a lot of people have an interest in science, but don't necessarily know the best way to go about learning about it or discerning it or kind of thinking in a scientific way or understanding like, well, how do you falsify something and everything else? How would you test something? How would you prove that what makes something objectively real versus just a subjective opinion? And those are things that we have not evolved to do well. And so it's something that we need to learn and almost overcome much of our mismatched evolutionary intuitions to fully appreciate and take advantage of. But it's something that I'm excited when I talk to someone young like yourself, that got themselves interested in the brain through um, screwing around and smoking DMT in high school, and then you took something that could just have been some goofy experience or a way of avoiding life, and you turned it into you turned it into inspiration for bringing things to this world and educating yourself. And so yeah, it's I'm just a very big science fan, so I'm thrilled to see I'm excited to hear about your future. Check in 10 years and see where you're at.
Man, I mean, I feel so blessed to have someone like you. So thank you, man. And that comes from like everybody else in my generation, I guess. I don't know. But like I guess I'm trying to say is that like we need like it's so important to um just keep passing down these things to the next generation, like, keeping science fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Int- but I don't know if a lot of what got me into it was because I thought it was fun. I mean, um yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, share.
I don't know. I was just trying to like think of how um when I got into science, it was because of fun. I think a lot of it was because of um maybe even fear, if I may say,
Mhm.
confusion and just curiosity, I guess. I don't know why I'm getting so dark, but yeah, I was it seemed like people had answers. And so I was like, I wanna search. But um I want to mention, I think it's interesting how whenever you read something and you leave and you come back or listen to a podcast and you
Mhm.
listen to it again, you catch maybe not even catch things, it's the same thing, but you interpret it differently.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, maybe we can maybe the really fascinating stuff is like the most simpleness of stuff. Like there's this one Ramdas talks about in one of his books. I think it's a documentary that he has on with Tim Leary that they made after his stroke when he was um yeah, older. But he said that uh he said that if he would have to, well, he was in Harvard doing studies for psychedelics. He had to come up with a list of books of things, a list of things in for a book of things that people on trips would find fascinating while on psychedelics. And there was this other scientist's job whose job was to write everything who that wasn't psychedelic. And the one thing that they both wrote on the list was a like can spilled of Coke, a spilled can of Coke. And I just found that so interesting because like how Ram Dass thinks that's like if you were tripping in a room and you saw like a can of Coke spilled over, your mind would like just explode because of like the contents and everything on the Coke or something because it's just so crazy. And yeah, there's this like idea that he talks about a lot of the time, which is like you already like know everything and you're God in drag, and basically before you came in this incarnation, you took an amnesia pill or something, and you kind of forgot your identity, and in doing so, you kind of forgot like everything else, and um, yeah, so um everything that you
Yeah.
rediscover is kind of like a remembrance. You're kind of just remembering the knowledge. So I think it's kind of like a little bit of that. Like you're actually coming back to yourself a little bit and you're yeah, that's a really big explanation for what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I definitely have more of a that's a little more of a top-down kind of point of view. I definitely have more of a bottom-up kind of natural emergence of kind of chaos and evolution, but than Ram Dass. But yeah, I mean
Mm,
this is
yeah.
why I've always had very good conversations with people like Duncan Trussell and Pete Holmes and those types because we see things almost the exact opposite. But yeah, it's a very interesting uh, point of view. I certainly do think that part of the psychedelic experience that is uh, really has benefited me a lot is some of that those reset qualities. I think it's a way of kind of resetting um, back to a sort of a default state,
Mm.
and you in doing so you can kind of appreciate, something like a spilt can of Coke, or something like that, more than
Mm.
you would, because you could be like, the very idea that we have soda in our modern
Yeah.
world, and that we get to experience any of this, and those sorts of things that might otherwise be a pain in the butt, or where we take for granted or whatever, we can actually appreciate and see in a new way. I do think that sometimes the psychedelic experience, in part of the reset, can sometimes too overly embolden faulty intuitions and cognitive biases that we also all feel and are born into. So, I mean, I think that, like, for example, knowing that the Earth is round isn't something that, like, our souls remembered. I think it was through scientific inquiry. I think that our intuition, just like every single mammal's intuition on Earth, is that Earth is flat, because that's exactly how it feels. That's how it appears. There is no real reason to think otherwise until enough evidence points to that. And we happen to have cultural transmissions that allow us to pass on this knowledge through spoken word and written word, and now
Yeah.
the internet, and we have tools of testing all of that. And so, I think that where I see things run amok a little bit with psychedelics is when you kind of have that reset state, and then you're like, wait, but look around. The Earth is flat. Why did I ever think it was?
Mm.
That was some conspiracy made up by this and that to, like, convince us of.
Right.
And really, it's just like, the we are all born thinking that we are the most important being, the center of the universe.
Right.
And because we are all at the center of our own conscious experience, I'm sure every animal with a brain of contemplating such things probably perceives the same thing, because it's your that's the information that you have access to is all that you have. I mean, I can't tell you what's happening 3 blocks away right now, not because it's not real or doesn't exist or isn't important, but I simply don't have access to that information. And it's within my own interest to kind of make use of the information that's around me, and talking with you right now, and not spending a lot of time like, I wonder what's happening 3 blocks away, right? There's certain reasons why, like, you know the ego is kind of ultimately unavoidable. And so I think that another thing during the psychedelic experience is that you do get kind of reset to that default feeling that you are at the center of the universe, and there's a part of your brain that, when you tap into it, um, I think you have your own different personalities inside of your brain. And I think from each of those personalities' point of view, everything that if I really like the film Inside Out, that has this girl's emotional states in her brain, pulling various levers on control panels and stuff to drive her external behavior. and
Mm.
and every single one of those emotional states kind of thinks that their way of perceiving things is sort of the right way, and thinks that, everything that they have access to is kind of everything
Mm.
that there is. But that's just like that's just classic egocentrism all the way down, in a way.
Mm.
And so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly very good friends with with people that are huge Ram Dass people, but yeah, I definitely see the world uh, like very differently than from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on Rogan, I heard you talk about a little bit about this idea that before you come into the earth, when you're in the womb, you might be experiencing psychedelic effects or fractals or visuals, I believe. Something like
Yeah,
that you said.
yeah, I think that that the origins of kind of the um, let's see how I mean I think that what does consciousness look like when it first starts emerging, and I think that are you familiar with the game of life,
Yeah,
the yeah, trying to
the
think
board
of the
game.
scientist's name. No, no, no. There's
Oh,
it's a scientific
oh man.
it's essentially you just put in like these random bits of rules into a grid, and it lights up these little
Mm,
squares. And if you put the right series and combination of rules in place, this grid kind of comes to life, and everything it kind of it'll look like spaceships flying around and stuff like that. It looks like um a whole kind of life of its own, but it's not. It's just a bunch of simple rules. And I think that that from the perspective of what the brain is doing, I think some of the early perceptions of consciousness probably are probably kind of make use of like very simple rules like that, and I think that things like fractals are a nice way of kind of delivering packets of information and code
mm,
in a way of like transmitting kind of a conscious experience through shapes and things. And I think that once you're born, you already have a perception before you're born, and that once you're born, you start making sense of the physical environment that you're in, that you start attaching um, various sensory information to kind of translating it. Just like if I were to learn Spanish, I would be like, okay, casa means home, but I don't intuitively think
mm,
of I don't I have to like add a layer, an extra layer between kind of that intuitive understanding. And I think that over time in the first bit of life, you kind of translate some of those early bits of conscious experience, which are more like raw data, simpler forms of data,
mhm,
then just kind of become ways of categorizing and labeling more and more complex perceptions. And we don't remember a lot of this process. And I think that in the psychedelic state, you gain access to parts of, and so that perception that I'm talking about, where like maybe a part of the brain is perceiving sensory information as like colors and codes and things that swirling about, just like the computer program running this is like a bunch of ones and zeros right now. I think that I think that this perception and this consciousness is built on top of some of those more earlier bits of coding and programming in our minds, and we just don't normally
mm,
have access to those. And there's something about the psychedelic experience that kind of either inhibits our normal conscious perception in some way that gives us access to those more rudimentary layers of perception that ultimately gives rise to this consciousness, but seems very different in form than what we're now consciously experiencing. So I don't know if any of that makes any sense. I often try to explain this to people, and as I'm saying it, I'm like, does this even make any sense the way that I'm phrasing this? But that's how I kind of um, have always interpreted some of those DMT states I think it's just kind of like a synesthetic exploration into layers of a perception that give rise to this consciousness that we don't normally have access to, because you wouldn't want access to all of everything that's going on in your brain all of the time. It would be overwhelming.
Mm,
You wouldn't have to sit and like consciously think about every muscle that you're moving and your blood circulating and around and everything else that your brain is kind of busy directing about and turning into autonomic responses. But to get a little window into that world is something that's really fascinating.
yeah, and do you think there is a way to stay in that place? Or okay, so okay, I have two. I guess I think I have three thoughts. My first thought is that um, it's funny that you say that because I would connect that place, the the in the womb place, to heaven, for example, or
Yeah.
the and I would even say that it's the same place as LSD, but uh, I don't know. I still think that it's internal. Um, uh, I don't
Like
know.
heaven's internal.
Heaven and the psychedelic trips, everything that you experience, like if you just close your eyes, like how much do you think is actually like obviously it's not there. Your visuals, your psychedelic hallucinations aren't there, but how much of that is like your nervous system or um something that's actually uh that you're looking at something like that. And the second thought that I had was that the opposite of that would be hell. And it just I thought of the quote that the path to hell is paved with preference. And
Yeah, yeah.
it just got me thinking like that would be kind of cool to say how when we start and 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 I think Ramdas talks about this where he says that it's okay to have preferences. The goal is not to get rid of the preference, but to get rid of the attachment to the preference.
Yeah.
Like to just, you know,
Yeah, I think that that attachment is something that gets us in all sorts of trouble, and it can happen in the psychedelic state as well. You can get too attached to a psychedelic experience. You can get too attached to one insight. You know, just like we get too attached to this perception and belief system or a particular habit, we can also get too attached to just having had one you know, one experience with like one substance or in one place, and
right.
you know I yeah, I'm speaking as someone who has lost their mind because of attaching too much to particular experiences before. I've done
Whoa.
it a few times. As I've had very severe manic episodes. In those states, there's
Mm,
the emotions and the anxiety um, do create like a lot of attachment to kind of you know sometimes I mean, you can kind of come up with these like odd ideas or different ideas or whatever, or like there's something, emotions are used as drivers, and sometimes in certain states like that, your your brain can kind of get addicted to a certain insight or obsessed with a certain idea, and like kind of keep that connection and that obsession going. It will use every emotion. So it will use excitement, it will
Mm.
use stress, it will use paranoia, anxiety, happiness. It will, like, whatever kind of keeps that connection going. And so sometimes we can get just like a little bit too attached to one given idea, one given insight. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely think trying to have a feather's touch on our various attachments to ideas and preferences is wise, if not maybe a little impossible sometimes.
That's what I was about to say. Like, it's so much easier said than done. Like,
Mhm.
it's so easy to say. Like Pete Holmes, he has his famous bad trip advice, bad trip killer. Is always, by the way, I love Pete Holmes. Your 4 or 5 interviews with him, oh my goodness, they're all amazing. I love him so much. But he has
Thanks.
his theory of the always say yes to bad trips. He's like, that will cure any bad trip. I don't know if you've heard him say that, but he'll be like the reason why we're experiencing a bad trip is because we're pushing away something. So his idea of always saying yes to the thing is what will cure it. But you can say yes to anything and it's not just gonna cure it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think that there is exactly
Like
one perfect silver bullet rule that's going to
that's so true.
guide
It's like you
all of
just have
life or
to
any psychedelic
like
experience.
for me, a lot of the time thinking about death can sometimes like easing up my reality. Being like,
Mhm,
okay, well, I'm screwed. I'm gonna die. Like once you like accept that, which is like not as easy as just saying like, okay, I'm gonna die. No, you have to like somehow like believe it and it's like just
mhm,
redirecting the fear and emotions into whatever you want because you're like, okay, I accepted that this is how it's gonna go down. Let's make it go down while we play Xbox or while we have a cool podcast or something. But
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say that I love your idea of the sober reality being so sick and like just yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely think that things like exploring mortality and futility and some of those darker aspects of life that are easier to avoid and aren't always the most pleasurable thing to think about. I also think that there is a lot of benefit in kind of hitting these even if it's just kind of like a philosophical rock bottom or existential rock bottom, where once you kind of truly do give up on attachment to things and you really truly like don't care anymore, that seems to be fertile ground for making novel connections. So when you kind of uh, uh, I've often had myself in enough of a existential crisis to be like, oh, what's the point of anything, and kind of be in that state for long enough, for months on end, to which finally, like, the futility wins out. And it seems like almost every time, once I've like truly given up on life and existence, that's when I end up kind of putting some new interesting insight together that I don't know if it's just a survival mechanism or a will to live or whatever, but it seems like it was in the absence of
Mm,
attaching to this existence that I was able to see
yeah.
some new connections and get a bit of inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that's what we come here for to not die per se, you know, uh,
Mhm.
to live.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, yeah, perhaps. I don't find myself, speculating, too much on, like, what we're here for, but how I mean, I often think
Yeah,
about how we got here and how our how all of the processes that got us here,
here we are.
prime us in very different ways, and yeah, exactly, here we are.
I love that intro, bro. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what to do with it and whatnot,
mhm,
but, uh but yeah, I mean,
that's good.
this existence is even at its worst, it's very weird and interesting that we get to experience any of it. It's
Yeah,
statistically impossible that we exist at all, and that we get to communicate across the country through technology, and none of this should be happening at all. But here we are,
and we're bored.
and we're bored. Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, Shane, it's been close to an hour, man, but thank you so much.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Man, for real, I love recording podcasts. I am always so scared, especially when it's like someone big. And then once I record it, I'm like, that was amazing. That was so fun.
Yeah, I had a great time. I'm happy that you had me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. So yeah, where can people find you?
You can go to ShaneMauss, MAUSS.com, and we're going to be adding new tour dates constantly. So join my email list. I use Instagram more than any other social. And yeah, hope you can catch one of my live shows.
Cool. And that will be in the description below.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, man. I'll see you in Dallas for your next show.
Awesome. Thanks. I can't wait.
But yeah, thank you,
Take
Shane.
care of yourself.
You too.
Appreciate it.
Hare Krishna.
Bye.
Goodbye.